not our final shot, but rather our face-off, because this is a crazy thing that we're in this age where politics and messaging has to be part of sports. So I wanted to take that on with you guys. Thoughts, anyone? Let's go with Garrick.
I'm sorry, I was typing a message.
What's the specific? What's the specific
You're gonna have
question?
to edit this out.
Yeah.
Because he asked me if I was recording, and I was, but it hadn't started, so I just hit record now. So.
All right. So I'm looking at the social messaging. You know, we know in the NBA it's a big deal. We know that there's a lot of players where they fear for their hearts, and as you pointed out in past shows, Chris, this is a time where they actually have a voice and a stage, and that they may have never had. That's so big, and this is their passion. But you know, there's a lot of us who are saying, can we just get back to sports? So how are we going to find balance in the future? I'll start with you, Garrett.
Well, I think, as Chris pointed out before so well, that for some of these young men, it is the first time that they've really had a stage and an opportunity to have the spotlight so that they can say something. That being said, I always go back to my thing that sports is something that has the potential to unite everybody, because everybody comes around their team, regardless of faith, ethnic background, socioeconomics. You can be together with your team. And my concern is just that when we start doing these, you know, social messages, it can be divisive. And so whether it
excludes people.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of mixed. Yeah.
When I was in a press conference, when they were talking about, oh gosh, it was about a year and a half ago, I want to say, talking about soccer primarily, but putting the LGBTQ, the rainbow on their uniforms and such. And Megan Rapone had said, you know, if you were in our locker room, it's a gay locker room. And I was thinking, you know, if someone were to say, if you were in our locker room, it's a Christian locker room, it's a white locker room, would not be okay. It wouldn't be okay. It excludes everyone. To stand up and say, if you were in our locker room, it's an inclusionary locker room, everybody's welcome, we're all on the same team, that I could get behind. And I brought that up in the presser. She wasn't real happy with me, but I think it's an important point. Jim, as a coach, this is a hard line to ride, isn't it?
Well, I think it is, because not everybody's had the same education, not everybody's had the same upbringing, not everybody has the same knowledge of what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. You're sort of guessing. I think a lot of times in social media, people are guessing what should be said or what could be said, and we all have different goals in mind. You're trying to express an opinion. You might be expressing something that's stressing you out. So, and sometimes it's just for its own attention. It's to get a shock, to get a rise out of somebody. I think all those things. The hard part is we have to decipher it. Is this really what that person feels, or is this person just playing for a surface situation? It's probably why I stay very much to the side of social media. My family gets on me a little bit because I don't necessarily attack every message and every text, every email. I have a Twitter account. I think I've tweeted 12 times or something like that on Twitter. But I have, it's not like people are waiting with bated breath to hear me, but they are to some people. Some people have some very profound things to say, but it's not going to go away. And so I just think there's a learning curve here, and people are trying to trying to learn how it should be used appropriately.
It's tough, and I still have a hard time with the American flag and the national anthem. That's a real tough one for me. But I do really respect that the folks who are taking it on with grace, and that's something that I guess I will bring up in our final shot, because it means a lot to me when someone like Jerry Jones can say, hey, I want to show grace to players. You know exactly how I feel, make no bones about it, but I want to show grace. And I asked that the players who think differently would show grace as well. That I thought was classy, and I think that's what I want to mirror in faith.
Hey, Michelle, when you say that you struggle with the flag and the anthem, maybe clarify that so that people actually understand.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you'd have to not know me. That, yeah, I'm a big believer that we can have differing opinions, but we all come together with that national anthem. There is not liberty and justice for all. I get that. I come from a family who, my mom was like, you're not going to political rallies, you're not saluting the flag and all of that. But as I grew up, I realized that while there isn't liberty and justice for all right now, that is the exact thing, the tenets that we believe in and that flag represents. So it's wonderful when we can say, we disagree, we have problems, but we're going to come together under this auspice that we are looking for liberty and justice for all, and we're going to try to do that and come together. So yeah, other people feel differently. The bigger story, can we show grace? So guys, anyone want to weigh in before we take a break? You look like you're biting at the bit, Chris.
Yeah, like really quick. So we have a man here with us, Jim Zorn, and he knows that he reached out and he hit on the lives of fans all over the place, all over the country. We can even see the world. He knows that. But I mean, how specifically the stories that how he reached people, he doesn't know. And he's found a new one out today. A little boy in North Carolina, was encouraged in his faith in Jesus Christ because of Jim Zorn, and didn't even know that's what it was until later on when I was looking back and I realized, it wasn't the cool helmet, it wasn't the sweet face mask he had. It was the way he went out there and supported his teammates in the face of something that was really difficult, and then later realizing that he loved Jesus, and that's where that came from. He never said a word. He never said a word. And I know that people use their platform for the best and for the good. But Jim Zorn, to me, in my fifth grade stuff, as a little boy, I never saw him say a word. All I saw were his actions. And his actions helped me to follow Christ. That's the bottom line for me.
Yeah, and so I think the lesson in that is it goes beyond the politics and whether you kneel, whether you stand, what you have on the back of your shirt. It's what's in your heart and how you live it out that is really the most important as we move forward.
Yeah, and I also think that, and I appreciate you saying what you said, Chris, but it also shows how God can work even in the midst of ordinary people, because what I'm trying to do is make sure that I
was going to see if I could put you
am an example at home with my family, because my family's always watching me on a daily basis, and they want to also know that the things that I say I'm also doing, because I can be I can have a very strong opinion. And I can say, do this, but don't watch me because I'm not doing it, but I want you to do it. And that's a tough deal. Not so much between us right now, because this program is only for a short time. But the hard part is the daily, that daily walk. So I'm glad that God uses people like you and me and to influence others, because we don't necessarily measure up on a daily basis, but we've been talking about grace here a little bit, and so I can relate to that.
Coach Jim, and you're also living that out on the XFL sidelines. We have the heightened coverage, the mics and everything. And I've seen you a number of times. I was so proud. I saw you a number of times talk to players like they were family, man, like they were your sons. After a mistake, a bad play, you weren't chewing their heads off. You spoke to them like men, and with encouragement. And that was
right.
That's a deeper
story.
That's a God story.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that kind of was shocking in the XFL, but what made it so compelling for fans is that the microphone's right there. They're calling plays. They're hearing you call the play, and then I remember one pregame. The announcers were in my headphones. They can hear what I'm saying all the time, and they asked me to. There was a flurry of cuss words that were going on in previous games, and they wondered if they wanted to say, "Hey, watch your cussing," and I hadn't had a problem with that, but one of the reasons, when I was the head coach of the Redskins, my son held my cord. I had a wired cord because you could hear at that time a little bit better with the headsets, and I gave him $5 for every cuss word I would say on the sideline, and so man, he was there, as he was just a young kid. But he was watching, and I remember him sprinting into the locker room when we were behind. He was just telling the story that he was sprinting in because he knew I was going to unleash on the team, and he wanted to get some money with me cussing at the team. I paid him a few dollars, but I didn't pay him much.
That's awesome. What a great story.
I love that.
That's awesome.
But, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we will be back in just a moment and let you know what great companies are part of supporting Live from Seattle and the God story that we look for every single day. This is our Thank God It's Friday edition of Live from Seattle, and you are right in the middle of sports time out. Stay with us. I'd like to see you, to tell you the truth. We have with us a pastor, and he is chaplain, and he wears a lot of hats. He's a pretty cool guy too. We've got with us Garrick Payne. We have with us author and veteran sports reporter Rich Hallstrom. We have television, radio producer, and he actually plays a superhero as well. So he, even though he's a villain, does that make sense? We have Chris Brown. Joshua McMillan is with us, our sports authority and manna on the street guy. I'm your humble host, and there's some other guy. What was his name again, guys? The guy we invited today, Jim
Zorn.
Jim Zorn is with us today. Yes, he
number
is,
10 in your brochure, number 1 in your heart.
There you go. Legends Jim Zorn is with us on this sports timeout. Gentlemen, we are looking at a crazy time, and I wanted to talk about college sports. Pac-10, the Big Ten, the Pac-12 have all said, yeah, we're not going to be doing anything this fall. College students aren't in classes. Should sports be running? There's a lot of confusion. There's even some folks who say, hey, you know what? Football could go on. We can do it safely. So the future of college sports this year and beyond, I want to take that on. Raise your hand if you want to too, guys, as we're Zooming today. Who wants to take that baby on first? All right, we're going to go with Garrick Payne, and then Chris Brown, and then, of course, anyone who wants to weigh in. Garrick.
Well, I just think that the college sports scene just really, there's so much to the college experience for these athletes. It's really it's not just one of the things they do on the side. For many of them, that's why they're at school. And so I think, and the sense of community and pride that there is behind sports within the collegiate realms, I mean, it's a real shame that it's getting shut down.
Yeah, it's tough. Chris?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm actually looking forward to going to games. I got the stadium back here. This will be hopefully my viewpoint. But anyway, but you know what? I mean, so down here you have the Atlantic Coast Conference and you have the SEC, and I think there's a difference. I think a major difference is that you don't have the major city centers down here, you know, that you do in other places. Like you have the Detroit, Michigan, you know, you have LA, Seattle, you got Atlanta. You basically in the South in this area, you got Atlanta, and then you have Miami, which is kind of their own deal anyway. So down here, people are very much of the mindset of we want this, we want to see our sports, we want to do whatever it takes. And I think that's why you're seeing these leagues are kind of wanting to go towards playing. And can I say one other thing? The former coach of Ohio State came out and made a statement about the spring option, and I don't think it's going to happen. He said it's not going to happen. Because think about it, you'd have to have 2 seasons in 1 calendar year for football.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Jim Zorn, as a coach, and even looking at the potential startup of the XFL again, thinking about the coronavirus and some of the concerns. I know in the NFL, 72 players had last week tested positive. There's some fear, there's some concern. What do you think colleges, how should they navigate? What would your advice be?
Well, I believe when you come right down to playing, you have to, football is a collision sport. It's a violent sport, and everybody's got to come together. You come together in a huddle, even in a no huddle, you're right next to each other, right? So you're playing, and then you're playing against another opponent. So it's very difficult to socially separate in a football game. You're trying to swarm to the ball, not run away from a virus. So I think the mix. I think the mix creates an issue. I think if they did have the game, nobody is refuting that it's not important. I think it is. But if there's one person, and I can relate, I guess, to what happened to us, even before the league shut down, we were playing the LA team at home here, and there were many of the LA players, because of how public COVID was in Washington State. There was a group of the LA players that were not going to come. They just were going to refuse to get on the plane because they were very nervous about this virus. And this was when it was first starting up. Then one of our players came down with COVID-19. So when that player came down with COVID-19, it shut everything. It shut the tap off of football in the XFL, and then they shut the league down because governors started taking over. And then all of a sudden, you really realize that there are more important things than whatever was being run, because people were getting very sick and some died. And so we can say we want college football, but we have to have, I think the plan is much harder than when you get down to the details of the plan of how to avoid contracting COVID-19 in a football program. I think that's why people are just throwing up their hands, and maybe not that, but it seems, hey, let's just not deal with it. Let's postpone it. But even postponing it, the disease now is going to be around. And so we have to discover how to cope with a new disease in our world. I think that's the main thing.
And we also have, beyond the Big Ten, Pac-12 opting out, we also have the pack of players that we talked about last week who are saying, we want to piece up the financial action. So there's a lot that's plaguing that. Josh is a big proponent of that. And I think the consensus last week was, okay, maybe a trust fund or a stipend or something. But, Josh, as we move forward, is that adding confusion? And do you think we should go, what's next? Making sure the science students who are in on scientific discovery, shouldn't they get a piece of the action too?
There may be something to be said for that but I think what it comes down to is, yes, players right now do get a value, but they are controlled by the system in a way that, like we've talked about before, they can't have jobs outside of the college football realm. I think that's one of the biggest things to me. They can't make any money off their likeness. There's a case we talked about on the show a couple of years ago where a kicker who in college was making YouTube videos on the side saying like, hey, this is how you kick, giving pointers and stuff. And he was actually getting some notoriety on his channel, and people were enjoying his content, and they made him shut down his YouTube channel, saying that you cannot make money off of that.
And was that the university? Was that the university, or was that NCAA?
I believe that was the NCAA that shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sad. It's sad, and it does close off the ability to, as we were saying, you can't even get a pizza. You just and some of these kids, this is all they got. They don't have rich families that are going to be able to help them. So yeah, it can be tough.
Michelle, all these questions and all these things that we're discussing today just show a lack of leadership by Mark Emmert, NCAA president, and all the school presidents on no matter what issue it is we talk about, whether it's COVID or the start or the end of the football season, or whether players should be compensated in some way. These are all issues at one point or another that the NCAA has refused to deal with, and that's what you don't do if you really want to be in leadership and affect kids' lives. You've got to deal with issues head on, and I think that's the last thing the NCAA wants to do now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as Jimmy was saying, this is not easy. Yeah, do they need to step up? Yeah, but as Jim was saying, it's not an easy time. Guys, I want to get to some other sports issues like the NFL. Looks like we're going to have some kind of startup. Looks like we're going to have some games. What is that going to look like? I was just talking with the season ticket holder who was saying, I have legacy tickets front row. They're moving everybody back. Rows, who's going to be able to watch games? Are people going to be priced out? What's it going to look like? This is nuts. Rich, I haven't heard a whole lot from you. Thoughts?
Well, I think that having fans or anything like that in an environment right now with everything that we don't know about the COVID virus, I think that's an unrealistic expectation. And I think the NFL just need to concentrate on doing the best to do their own bubble interpretation and have a regular season that continues and ends with the Super Bowl.
Okay, yeah. Do you think it's going to be anything but normal, Jim?
Yes, I think it'll be anything but normal. Although when the game is played, players will, the ones that are fighting to win for their teams, their communities, their families, their contracts, and all that. I don't think anybody, when you're playing the game, is thinking about anything else but the execution of their particular job. So I know that the Seahawks are getting ready. They've got Zoom meetings. They're trying. What's great about coaching is you figure out what you try to figure out. Okay, here's what we can't do, and then you try to go hard with what you can do. And so it's going to be different. It's different for everybody, but the Seahawks will field a great team. Baltimore hopes they can play because they're, they've got such a special team as well. And I know, Chris, I see all that gobbly stuff on your background. Right. And
Yeah,
so,
we're zooming in. We're going to put that zoom
that's
up
right.
on my
But
webpage so
I
you can
guess
see what's going on.
my comments would be just that they're going to have a league, they're going to have games, but what's going to happen is they're going to figure out through this pandemic what they can, what they've done wrong and what they've done right, and hopefully they'll, there's some wisdom going on in putting it together. It's just hard to know exactly how it's all going to come out because of the response of the disease itself.
Jim, do you feel like you could coach through the pandemic? If somebody called you up today and gave you that assignment, could you come up with a viable plan to coach through the pandemic?
I would. The viable plan is to try to keep everything as clean as possible. Try to understand the hard part for coaches. We don't necessarily understand the medical. We hear how to wash your hands, how to have masks on, and all of these things help thwart away any possibility of COVID. But at some point, you got to take your mask off and eat. You got to be near somebody at some point. And so when that happens and somebody gets the virus, then we need to figure out how that happened and how we can avoid that next time. I think that's going to be the issue of moving forward. And you hope that we can deal with, close down all the variables and deal with the pandemic in sport as we see it come on. That's how I would handle it. It's almost you go along until somebody in your program has it, and then you gotta, then you deal with that. Even though we were already washing our hands, avoiding all kinds of stuff, there was one person who we just thought had the flu. He had COVID-19, and he was tested positive. And I think testing will continue to go on, and we need to continually do those things. That's what's going to happen, I think, in sport is both teams are going to have to do something to assure each other that the players that are sick and have a positive test are not allowed to be up in the arena. That would be something that has to be dealt with.
And you had mentioned there's things that we can do, there's things that we can't do. I want to move to MLS. Derek, you get to weigh in on this. Something we can't do is change the past, and the winner of the MLS is back cup. But something we can do is move forward. We're going to have a lot of home or local in Portland. We're going to be in Vancouver a lot, which is going to be interesting. So I just want briefly your thoughts on MLS moving forward. And Sounders just wake up and smell the pitch and say, okay, now we're back. Maybe a third star on our jerseys, on our kits.
Yeah, well, Sounders love a challenge, and it's going to be an uphill climb this year. And I mean, our first game back on the 23rd is against you know who. I won't say the P word, but but we'll be playing against the Timbers, and so it'll be exciting. And Sounders love a challenge, and that's the thing. And I think, I mean, we have the chance, we can go for it. So I mean, it's
the course in Seattle teams. When the going gets rough, we get going. I mean, we've seen it with the Seahawks again and again from day one. If we just have this ability, so I think that's runs the gamut. Josh, I wanted to weigh in. The Seattle Mariners, you're our resident M's fan. Give us kind of an update.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I've been saying, it's exciting watching a lot of the young talent that we have. And this year's an interesting year because even though we don't have a winning record right now, as you watch the games and how they're going on, you're seeing exactly what you want to see. You're seeing a lot of life from our young players. You're seeing good outings from a lot of our starters, especially the pieces that figure to be part of the future. And you're seeing it lost oftentimes in the bullpen and on the back end. we have like Evan White kind of coming alive a little bit. Kyle Lewis is still doing it at the plate and in the field. JP Crawford's doing well. Kyle Cedar's been showing up, and like he looks like he was just one of the young up and comers. He's the hitting group of Kyle and Kyle there doing wonders in the middle of the order. So a lot of things to be really excited about. Honestly, a couple of people have made this point. In a season like this, where next year's the year that you really expect your team to start stepping up and competing, this is kind of exactly what you want to see. You want to see them be uncomfortable to play against, as Scott Service said. You want to see your hitters hitting, your starters doing well. And, you know, you have a lot of no-names, people who weren't expecting a lot of in the bullpen. You're just figuring out if there's any pieces that are going to stick there. So if you lose it there, that's fine, then we get a better draft pick next year.
Can you guys imagine what happens when the Mariners finally make it to the playoffs and what we're going to be doing with Josh? Can you imagine if they ever go to the World Series? If the rest of us are still alive by then, how it's going to be? I mean, Josh is sorry, Josh. Sorry. Yeah, guys, it is time. It's time. Here we go. Let's fix that. Give me a second, guys. I have to fix my sound here. All right. It's time, guys, for our final shot. Our final shot is where we go around the round table. It's just a couple of seconds to give a shout out, a thought, somebody they want to bring to our attention, whether it's sports or in the world or anything. So we are going to go around the round table. Jim Zorn is not usually with us, so we'll let you go last. I'm going to start with two men, Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, choosing to show grace to players who disagree with him on the anthem and say, you know, I want to listen to them. I just ask that they show grace. I want America to look more like that. And of course, I want to give a shout out to Jim Zorn for being an inspiration to a young girl quarterback. And because of that, I never said no. I kept doing things that you wouldn't think a girl could do in the time and living out for you. So thank you. Pastor Payne.
Well, I'm going to take the easy button here, but I think it's really the most appropriate one. I'm going to give my shout out to someone who has been an inspiration to me, someone who has been a mentor and a friend, someone who's been through great adversity, being the head coach of an NFL team and then just getting fired after a year, and just what a challenge that was, but not giving up hope, not giving up in what he felt called to do, and then all that's gone on with the XFL. Coach Jim, you get my shout out today, and the way that you've lived and the way that you have had an impact on each one of us, I just want to give my shout out to you. Thanks, Jim.
I lasted more than 1 year in Washington, but yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah, that's sorry. Yeah.
But,
and all of that sounded so good.
It just felt like a year. I know. It wasn't long enough in any case.
I'm going to do what Garrick did, and I'm going to pile on. In the first year of the Seattle Seahawks franchise, I had the pleasure to meet Jim and Steve Largent in the span of 6 months apart, and it forever changed my life. And once again, Jim, you gave me the inspiration to read the Bible and learn about the real meaning of life. Thank you again, Coach. You are the best, and you are Seattle's #1 quarterback for now and forever.
Amen.
Chris Brown.
Yes, I've given Coach Zorn all the props this show, and I wanted to take the time actually to, you know what I do? I always go the different way. So for my shout-outs, I'm going to go to the leader on the leaderboard of the Wyndham Championship, that's pro golf, here in lovely North Carolina, Taylor Gooch, just for having the name Gooch. What's up, Gooch? That's a great name, boy. That's a great name, and he's 10 under. And I want to add Matt Skura is the center for the Baltimore Ravens who tore his MCL or MCL, I think, last season, was out. He not only is he making a comeback, but he has been saying opting out of the season like some players are doing. New England opting out of the season was never an option for him. Never an option. And I love it. I love it. Check that story out. It's out there.
All right. Joshua. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. Is it out yet? Is it out?
Oh.
Right. Yes.
Okay. And of course, where's your Joe Jorgensen shout out, Josh? Yeah, okay. We knew it would happen. All right. Yeah, we're not taking politics completely out of sports, are we? All right. And the one and only Jim Zorn, your final shot.
He dropped out, didn't he? That's all we all are. Yeah.
Shout out. There you go. There you go. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Jim, for being our special guest today. Jim Zorn, of course. And for the rest of you, hey, we'll catch you next time. Stay with us. We're going to get you plugged into the movies, even share some weird news. I'm Michelle Mendoza, your friend in the afternoon, and we're live from Seattle, 8:20 a.m. The Word. Oh, and hey, make sure you log on to MyMichelleLive or livefromseattle.com. Yeah, say it right. Livefromseattle.com. You can see more than you even heard today as you can watch us Zoom. We're live from Seattle, 8:20 a.m. The Word.